For the experiences that I facilitate, 99 times out of 100, the person will be blindfolded. They'll have an eye cover put on, and I will put noise canceling headphones on them and generally DJ or curate music to help to support the experience. They've taken people and put them on psychedelics and then put them in a brain scan. And what they have found happens is that the area of the brain that they've identified where the ego exists, they call the default mode network. And that part of the brain in the scan they see downregulates. Less energy is going there. And so what happens is that the other parts of the brain that are normally regulated by the default mode network are allowed to kind of play. They're allowed to communicate back and forth and in ways that it doesn't normally get to. So that's what's going on in the brain. There's generally a flood of serotonin, a flood of dopamine. And those things are also creating a physical experience of relaxation, euphoria, sometimes excitement or agitation, and then the emotional experience often or sometimes, which is fear. Also, but happiness, connectedness, love. One of the things that I think is the worst descriptor when it comes to psychedelics is this term called ego death. And I don't know that anything provokes more fear than this idea that there's going to be some type of death in my experience. Yes, the ego is downregulated or taken offline. And yes, the ego wants to be in charge. It's the one running the show. I believe that everyone has an ego. The ego is a tool rather than it is the thing. It is where existence is. But to say that the ego is going to be taken offline or going to be killed off is a total misnomer. Psychedelics cause the ego and the default mode network to downregulate. And some people, the resistance for it to downregulate is what feels like a death. It's what provokes a lot of fear. It's what the ego says, oh, no, you're not going to let me do this, or this is not going to happen. And that is that resistance part. And that is the part that can really minimize or suppress the experience at all. I've given people a lot of high doses and lots of psychedelics and had them be able to, because of fear or because of their ego being the most stubborn mule that you have ever seen, to really be able to control and not allow that to kind of drop into the deepest places, which is actually what you're trying to do. Different psychedelic compounds last for different periods of time. And one of the reasons that I like the use of psilocybin is that it generally lasts about 5 to 7 hours. Whereas with LSD, the experience itself can last 12 to 15 hours. And I don't know who has that kind of time, but I don't. But so it makes it a much longer and more difficult to manage experience. I find that with psilocybin, after taking it through capsules or whatever, there's different ways of ingesting it that create a different length of onset. But taking it with capsules, the onset is approximately 45 minutes to an hour. Once onset comes, moving from onset to peak onset sometimes is 5 minutes, sometimes it's 30, sometimes it's an hour. And then a person is in that peak onset for 2 to 3 hours. So we have an hour to onset. We have onset being from 5 minutes to an hour. We're at 2, and then we're the experience lasting 2 to 3 hours. We're at 4 to 5 hours. And then generally, there's a process of porpoising. A person is kind of coming in and out as they kind of make their way back to wherever they are, which can take 45 minutes or an hour. And so I say that the experience of psilocybin is 5 to 7 hours.